Hello, I'm Casey Aiken. This is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Governor Hogan declares a state of emergency for Maryland after 3 COVID-19 cases are diagnosed in Montgomery County. How prepared is the state and the county to address this crisis? Marylanders want better schools, but they don't want to pay for them. Where will the General Assembly find enough money for Kirwan funding? And a week ago, it was all about Bernie and Liz. Now, with apologies to the OJs, the Biden love train is leaving the station. Will the Democratic presidential race be over before the Maryland primary in April? Stay tuned. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the former Majority Leader of the Maryland House of Delegates, John Hurson, Secretary of the Maryland Republican Central Committee, Mark Uncapher, Maryland Young Republican National Committeeman, Evan Young, and political strategist, Susan Heltemes. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. The coronavirus has spread to more than 95 countries, including the United States. At this time, here in America, there are 225 cases that have been detected in 19 states. In contrast, according to the Centers for Disease Control, Prevention, an estimated 32 million Americans have come down with influenza since September, resulting in 18,000 deaths. Mark, according to the Maryland Department of Health, there are several coronaviruses commonly circulating among people at all times, and they cause mild to moderate illnesses, such as the common cold. So what's the big deal here? The Hogan administration announced last night that there were 3 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Montgomery County, and they declared a state of an emergency. So why is the heightened reaction over this particular story?
Well, to answer the first question, which is how is it different, which is that people have not been exposed to this particular virus in the past, and therefore they don't have the immunities that we collectively have because we've been exposed to various diseases. What this then means is that if it begins to spread, it can spread through the population much more quickly than the other viruses that you described.
But what is the effect, though? I mean, is it any different than getting the flu?
But you have a chance of getting a flu shot. There is no flu shot for this.
Well, but even getting a flu shot doesn't mean you're not going to get the flu,
No, but
Susan.
if you get it, it is much milder. Yeah. And there is nothing for this.
I think the other big impact of having something that nobody has immune diseases to, is particularly for the elderly in nursing homes. You see this outbreak out in Seattle and Washington State. I mean,
well, that's where the majority of deaths have occurred.
Right, 9 deaths, I think,
right.
in 11. But the point is it kind of took over that one nursing facility and just killed a lot of people. So I think that's what worries me.
A bad flu could have done that to the nursing home
too. Oh, no, we don't know that, Susan.
Yes, they did.
They're saying it did. They haven't conclusively determined the source. So
that's why it's a little different. I think Mark's got a point, which is there isn't an immunity built up to this particular strain of virus, and that's the problem.
But the majority of cases are still mild.
Oh,
and if you're healthy and a good young 80%, and healthy, and good.
But if you're over 70,
that's what they're
and you get it, if you get you're over 70,
the Democrats just want to put everybody over 70.
Oh, give it a bunch. That's a bunch of crap, and you know it.
All right, Evan. According to health officials, the 3 individuals, a married couple in their 70s, and a third person in their 50s, contracted the disease while traveling overseas, and they have thus far not identified that country. Shouldn't officials release that? Isn't that important information for the public to know?
You know, on top of the government's job making sure that they're prepared to handle this, it's also to make sure people aren't freaking out and overreacting and causing discord all throughout the public. And part of that would be to give an idea of where these people may have been, because if they could have been anywhere, well, then we've all could have been anywhere, and we could all be wondering, were we the same place that these people might have been?
People are making decisions right now as to whether they should take trips to Europe and where in Europe. And colleges have closed down their study programs in Italy. Well, what if these were in Spain? What if these were in Greece or Germany? I mean, I think it's important for the public to know. I'm disappointed that the government hasn't released that information.
And providing all of that information gives everyone a better grasp on on what's going on and how they should or shouldn't act, because people are already overreacting to this, and making it more vague where this disease came from to get here is going to make everyone.
And I'm going to
overreact
criticize
even more.
Mark Elrich for this. I mean, Mark Elrich was quoted as saying he thinks they were on a cruise. Well, if you don't know,
They were on a cruise that has been stated already.
Then it
last
should be easy
night.
to know where
last
the cruise
night,
stopped.
Susan, last night he was quoted as saying he thinks they were on a cruise.
He didn't necessarily know at that point.
Well, you should look. You're unless you know, you shouldn't be
But this
speculating.
morning he knew.
Okay. Well,
Did he also say where the cruise went, where
No.
it stopped? So why can't he give us
Yeah,
that
no,
information?
All right, wait a minute. I want to go on to Susan about this because I want to talk more about the Mark Elrich administration and what they're doing. Last evening, he said it was disturbing and unfortunate. But what other things is the county doing to protect us, Susan?
Well, first of all, the county council was briefed on Tuesday by the health department to tell them what's going on. And I asked a question on Wednesday, and they said that they don't have near as many test kits as they want, but there are some test kits in the state. And what came out from the state is that the state is going to be responsible for following up where people got it, where they've been, who might be exposed. That is what the state is doing for these cases. And Mark is perfectly right today. He said, stay calm. And in the case of these 3 people, they are already almost over the issue. However, what you said in here, though, is interesting. You said 225 people. As of noon, it was already up to 250. So it's almost like minute by minute.
But
it is growing
it-
exponentially.
It is growing, and if there's a message to come back to what Evan said, which was that, look, most people who get it, it is not a catastrophic. What is important is just for them to isolate themselves, to, in a sense, quarantine themselves, so that it doesn't spread more quickly.
And the governor and the county executive and the council said, what you have to do is wash your hands.
And one thing I want to point
And
out
don't
there,
touch your face. And as President Trump said, it's hard not to
I'm
touch
glad
your
they're making
face.
such a big deal of washing your hands and just being basic cleanliness in your hygiene now, because what disgusting animals are running around not washing their hands? You should be doing that all the time. That's why people die from the flu.
You should
from
do it all the
colds
time. But
all the time.
what's so interesting and how difficult it is, even the woman who was instructing on television last night what to do and how to take care of it, licked her finger to change a page. So yes, it's a little hard not to touch your face. John, though, I want to change topics now because we got to talk about the money. The focus on the General Assembly, where the topic du jour is, of course, how to fund the Kirwan Commission. And it seems that your colleagues don't really know where that money's coming from, or do they?
Let's all be clear about what we're trying to fund
Don't
here.
panic. That's
No,
what
no,
I say.
no.
Don't panic.
The Kirwan Commission is one of a series of commissions over the last 2 decades that have looked at the school system and how to fund it and how to improve it. And there's a big, everybody wants to give money to the schools, right? You all want your kids to be brilliant and go to Harvard. But the point is, they did that for 2 years. Now they brought it to the legislature, and it's a big pile of money they're looking for. And they did it again. We did this in the early 90s. We said, oh, let's tax services. State of Maryland doesn't tax services, professional services, attorneys, doctors,
Internet.
yeah, okay. Accountants.
hair.
So that's what they decided to do, and that bill went down flaming. Even the sponsor of the bill voted against it. So I don't think they really do have a clear idea how to do this. I think what's going to happen is they're going to step back and say, okay, what are the couple of steps we can take in the next year? Interim steps. And they're going to try to tax luxury goods, which I think is going to be fascinating to see
Your
how they do that.
yacht's going to get tax cases.
Well, I want to go to Mark because they always say you shouldn't look at sausage being made or legislation when it's being
About right.
all right. So Mark, the House of Delegates, they've been working behind closed doors for amendments, and one of these amendments is proposing to transfer $2 billion in costs from the counties back to the state. But oh, surprise, surprise, Baltimore and Prince George's County, their formula is reduced even more, and Montgomery is not.
It actually was one of the challenges with Kirwan was always built into Kirwan was that it wasn't the state that was going to pay for it.
Support.
A substantial piece was going to be local support. As it is right now, Baltimore City pays the lowest percentage of its own education. So I saw the same story. Obviously, apparently the idea is to have them pay even less. Let's put this in context. This week, they're also talking about taking money that was dedicated for education, using that to pay the bonds to rebuild Pimlico. So here's what the Baltimore City priority is. Rebuild Pimlico, take money from education, but then save money, make Montgomery County pay the bill.
Look, I wouldn't mind paying extra money for Baltimore City if the schools were were good quality. I mean, I think Baltimore City is the most important jurisdiction in the state of Maryland. They should have a good school system, and I don't mind paying for it. But the school system stinks, and there doesn't look like there's any way it's going to be improved. But I want to go to Evan on the last question here. Evan, John already said that the sales tax is dead.
Yep.
So what taxes aren't dead? Now there's a proposed tax on cigarettes and vaping products. Is that going to pass? There's a proposed tax on the internet. Is that going to pass? Oh, they did sneak in a little thing about sports gambling, and if they open sports gambling, there's going to be a betting parlor at Redskins Stadium. Bingo!
Don't forget tax loopholes.
And of course, Susan's favorite, because she's a socialist. She wants she wants to close those corporate loopholes. What's going to pass? We got 1 minute. We got 1 minute left on this.
I hope a sports gaming bill passes, because then that would go a long way to making sure the Redskins stay in Maryland for a new stadium, and it'll be we won't have to completely cede ground to the Ravens. But of the ones you listed, I think the tobacco tax would be the easiest one to pass. Last thing they want are thousands of people showing up to protest again. And last year when they raised the age to purchase, the sponsors said making the ability to purchase tobacco was harder was one of the goals. This would make it even harder. I think they'd have an easy time without much pushback
I think the
passing
tobacco
that.
tax is going to pass.
Pat, what about the internet tax, John?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think Maryland wants to become, the anti-internet state.
But they
But
won't.
why shouldn't the
it'll be a
Because it's
hidden
service.
tax.
It's a service, and when you start down that road
John,
of
we
tax
got
and services,
to go to break,
it's
John.
a bad idea.
John says it's a bad idea, so we're going to take that as gospel. When we come back from this short break, how in the world did Joe Biden rescue his floundering presidential campaign? Because a week ago, we thought he was done. Stay tuned for our next topic. It's all right. Well, welcome back. And now, what a difference a week can make. Last week, the day before the South Carolina primary, I asked panelist Cynthia Rubenstein about a recent poll that showed Senators Bernie Sanders, Amy Klobuchar, and Elizabeth Warren leading the pack in Maryland. And I asked whether they could hold on until the Maryland primary in April. 2 days after the South Carolina primary, Senator Klobuchar suspended her campaign. And 2 days after failing to win a single state, including Massachusetts, on Super Tuesday, Senator Warren departed from the playing field as well. Susan, you campaigned for Senator Klobuchar in South Carolina. How did Sleepy Joe turn it around?
It was inevitable, I think. It was one of the most interesting experiences I have ever had campaigning. For 3 days, or 3.5 days, I would have never known there was a white voter in South Carolina, because I was working in this wonderful neighborhood and had wonderful conversations. And I started on Sunday, and by Thursday afternoon, there was a change. And by Thursday afternoon, I'll tell you, every single person I talked to loved Amy.
Was it the debate?
No, this is what the difference was. Thursday afternoon, people who like Pete, Mayor Pete, or Amy were saying, Democrats now, we don't like Bernie Sanders.
Well, isn't that the debate that caused that?
No, that wasn't it. No, they didn't. But they realized that if they didn't do something, and I will tell you, Congressman Clyburn's comments made a big difference, and they went, holy cow, we don't want to end up with Bernie Sanders. And I was told by a young person, you shouldn't say this, but what I said to them was, listen, I'm voting the end of April. This is your state. You vote your conscience. And those people went out in droves to vote for Joe Biden. And I knew then that was the tide that turned right there in South Carolina.
John, you're smiling. Do you agree with that?
I do. I've been very active in the Biden campaign. I've spent this last week going crazy trying to get all the closure bar delegates and the Buttigieg delegates to be supporting Biden.
And they're all turning over.
Well, so
And they are.
John, it sounds to me though that you've been out there with a bag of cash that you're trying to spend, walking around,
Really?
walking around money.
Where it is?
So
Where's that
because
bag of cash?
because Pete Buttigieg and Klobuchar endorsed Vice President Biden, and now a cynical person, unlike myself, would say,
Oh, yeah, unlike yourself.
payoff.
Listen, Casey, remember 2016?
Uh-huh.
Such a great Republican Party, conclave trying to get together.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it, but the Democrats figured it out,
Oh,
and we've got it.
walking around money.
And do you know
Tulsi
what?
Gabbard's still running for president.
Walking around money.
No,
is
no, but
disrespect.
Klobuchar and Buttigieg were smart to have done that because they went out winners.
Yep.
And in 4 years from
Yep.
now, they will be there.
And Bloomberg was like, I couldn't believe how fast Bloomberg.
Well, I want to
It was
ask.
like,
I want to wait a minute.
And
Wait a
Warren.
minute. We got to go to Mark on this because Mark,
It was like,
Mayor Bloomberg is your favorite candidate,
Among Democrats.
Among Democrats.
Let's make that clear.
and he also took a dive after spending $500 million on his campaign. I mean, was he ever a serious candidate, or did he just get shell shocked from being beat up by Elizabeth Warren in those two debates?
I think that debate is just two classic. The entire debates were kind of classic moments that. For the next generation, political consultants will be telling their candidates, don't you dare not prepare for debates, because remember what happened to
they'll be
Bloomberg.
telling them, don't you dare be a candidate because you've got to face this, and show that clip.
Right,
Or just
that is,
eviscerate.
he was absolutely eviscerated in the debate, and I don't think he ever.
But you know what I think the other issue is Bloomberg was counting on Joe Biden totally blowing up in South Carolina. And he didn't have a prayer after that because that was his path. And South Carolina proved that Joe was viable.
And the fact that
and
it was
Bernie
50%, he won 50%
Look,
of the
look,
vote in South Carolina.
if you looked at the polls
deal.
before that, the debate right before South Carolina, Biden was not doing well.
No, he wasn't.
Your guy was trending down.
Look, I was pacing my living room, watching the TV every night, and you're absolutely right. He was no place, but what happened was what he predicted would happen, which is you get all these voters, African-American voters, 61% of the
Well,
Democratic
I
voters in
think
South
that
Carolina,
was part
they
of it.
went for him. And they went
I think
big
that was
time
part
for
of
him.
it, but I also think he didn't come off badly in that debate.
Yeah, he was better.
And I think Bernie did again.
Correct.
He failed and stumbled because I think your moderate voter in the Democratic Party was looking for somebody substantial other than Bernie.
Right.
And
they wanted someone trustworthy and honest and kind.
And this is what I love about the party of diversity. We have two white males over 70 running for president. And Evan, I want you to consider the irony of this question.
Tulsi Gabbard is still in it. Don't forget Tulsi.
She's a woman.
Bill
She's
Clinton,
not a man.
the 42nd.
1%.
Can I ask the question,
She's
Susan?
from Hawaii.
Bill Clinton, the 42nd president, is 73 years old and has been out of office for 20 years. While the Democratic frontrunner, Joe Biden, is 77 years old, and his closest challenger, Bernie Sanders, is 78.
Don't forget the heart attack.
Would it be fair to say that President Donald Trump at 73 is the youth candidate?
First of all, I want to send my condolences, of course, to Elizabeth Warren. Second time she's been forced out of a race in the past year. Shout out to the Native Americans. But I do love seeing another young Republican in the race. It's clear that the party of diversity, the best they can come up with is two old whites. And the Republicans, we've got the youthful, vibrant voice of the future. So I'm hoping that voters in November reject the old has-beens and go with the,
I just
youthful
wanna-
energy of Donald J.
I
Trump.
just want to
and
point out to you all that all of those diverse candidates are going to support.
Well, I want
But
to.
voters-
Future President
Yeah,
Biden.
but voters, Democrat voters who love diversity wouldn't support the
But they
diversity.
have a
But
fit
they will.
candidate in Joe Biden. You
They
compare
will.
him
They will.
health-wise
Keep,
with
keep
Donald
having more
Trump.
elections.
I wanna-
Eventually, they'll vote for the diversity. Right? Yeah.
John, I want to ask you though, and this is a serious question, and it was reflective of the last election. What happens to the Bernie bros who will feel that they've been lied to, stolen, cheated, and jilted a second time?
Look, I
join
think it's definitely an issue that the Biden campaign needs to think about. We need to think about it in Maryland because there's, the last poll I saw in Maryland, Bernie was ahead. That was a long time ago, so not that long.
It was
2 weeks.
Bernie, Amy,
Yeah,
Liz.
no, I mean, but the point is, you're absolutely right. The party needs to understand, and let's talk about this like in the next week, because you got Michigan, you got Missouri, you got Washington State, which I don't know how those elections are gonna go.
Bernie pulled out of
Mississippi. I know.
to concentrate on Michigan. What
I know.
happens if
So
he
I
wins
think,
Michigan?
I don't think he's going to,
No,
because
he's not.
Joe Biden is
Yeah,
not
but you know
Hillary
Susan.
Clinton.
Do you know what the
He's
difference
worse.
is?
Well,
this
the
is what I love.
guys in Michigan, I think he's better.
John
So
only answered a question. I don't think so. And of course, Susan, who knows nothing more either, says, "Oh yeah, he's going to lose."
Do you know why?
You say it's
Do
so.
you know why the difference
You can
is?
say louder.
The reason is
you raise
there
your
is
voice?
not a caucus this year.
that's true.
And
There's a big
when you
difference.
don't have a caucus, everybody comes out.
Correct.
And in the many colors and shades.
I don't think,
of-
I don't think Bernie's
Wait a
going to win.
minute.
Michigan.
Mark, you're going to have the last word.
John gets to be this year's Jerry Cave for the Democratic primary.
No.
Look, this is great because you can just see how much fun we're going to have for the next 7 months leading up into November.
We
great.
didn't get to talk about Donald Trump today, though.
He already won in November. He's done.
Oh,
You mean the next president of the United States?
no, I don't think so.
All right. I want to thank you all. Stay tuned for parting shots when we come back from this short break. And now welcome back with parting shots, Susan Heltemes.
One of the biggest losers in this election were women. Misogyny is alive and well. And it came full force to me when I was talking to a sweet 83-year-old woman who weighed 85 pounds. And she said, "My dear, I don't look to women for leadership. I only look to the men. It's going to take another 4 to 8 years for these little old ladies to go on to the next life, and men have got to start getting open-minded." But the other thing, as I said earlier, caucuses are dead.
Thank you, Susan. Evan Young, your parting shot.
Thanks, Casey. I have a message for coronavirus. You don't impress me. I've seen death rates for otherwise healthy people below 1%. I've engaged in much riskier behavior throughout my life, and I'll do it again. So now that we have a couple cases here in Montgomery County, I'm looking for you. I hope I catch you so I can defeat you in 24 hours, embarrass you, and we can get on with our lives. I am the disease with no cure the world should be worried about, not coronavirus.
Well, thank you, Evan. Mark Uncapher, your parting shot.
Good news is the legislature, we always covered the contests and back and forth. Good news is that working on bipartisan gun legislation that will strengthen the penalties and also the tools that are available. Far too many people who are arrested for having illegal guns in Baltimore aren't incarcerated. This would strengthen the tools that are available for that.
Thank you, Mark. John Hurson, wrap it up.
Yeah, I just visited today Glenstone, a museum that's out in Potomac. Thanks to the Rails family. It is fantastic. It is a treasure for this county to have. Some of the greatest modern art is there. It's a wonderful space, not just the museum, but the grounds. And I would urge everyone over the summer to go there. It's free. So just get on the computer, the Google machine, and schedule a time to go because it's really fantastic.
Thank you, John. I want to thank the panel. This has been a great discussion. And as I said, as we were breaking right before parting shots, this is going to be a lot of fun for the next 6 months. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.